We're live from New Delhi, watching the India NewsNight, India's voice to the world. I'm Shukla, coming up in the next hour. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh reiterates need to hold perpetrators and organisations of terrorism accountable and bring them to justice, says Operation Sindoor launched to dismantle terrorist infra and data attacks. At UN Security Council, India exposes Pakistan's gross hypocrisy over terror and child rights abuses. In the UNSC's open debate on children and armed conflict, Indian envoy labels Pakistan as one of the grave violators of the CAAC agenda. US and Iran to hold nuclear talks next week. President Trump signals easing Iran oil sanctions enforcement to help put country into shape. Kennedy's US vaccine panel says it will scrutinize the childhood immunization schedule. Panel will vote on RSV therapies today. Experts met the announcement with skepticism. And Delhi and Uttar Pradesh await monsoon showers while heavy rainfall being witnessed across Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Met Department issues rainfall alert for many other states. An Axim-4 aboard SpaceX Crew Dragon with India's Shubhanshu, Shukla and 3 other astronauts will dock with International Space Station at around 16:30 IST today. Shubhanshu will be the first ever Indian at the ISS. And on to the details now. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh today said that any acts of terrorism are criminal and unjustifiable regardless of their motivation, whenever, wherever and by whomsoever committed. Attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defence Ministers meet in China, Rajnath Singh reiterated India's stand on zero tolerance against terrorism. Let's hear him.
Pleasure to be here in Qingdao to participate in the SCO Defence Ministers meeting. At the outset, I would like to thank our hosts for their warm hospitality. I would also like to congratulate Belarus for joining the SCO family as a new member. Excellency, the world we live in is undergoing a drastic transformation. Globalization, which once brought us closer together, has been losing momentum. The weakening of the multilateral systems has made it harder to address urgent challenges, from maintaining peace and security to rebuilding economies after the pandemic. At the same time, competition between major powers is intensifying, with the trade and technology being increasingly used as tools in geopolitical rivalries. Excellency, India believes that the reformed multilateralism can help build cooperation to prevent conflict between countries by creating mechanisms for dialogue and collaboration. No country, however, large and powerful, can manage alone. In fact, the very idea of the global order, or indeed of multilateralism, is the assumption that nations have to work with each other for their mutual and the collective benefit. This is also reflective of our age-old Sanskrit saying, Sarva Jana Sukhino Bhavantu, which implies peace and prosperity to all. Excellencies, it is in the context of the current uncertain geopolitical scenarios that the role of SCO becomes very important today. SCO member countries contribute around 30% of the global GDP, while about 40% of the world's population resides in them. We therefore have a collective stake to create a safe, secure and stable region that can contribute towards progress and improvement of our people's lives. Excellency, I believe that the biggest challenges that we are facing in our region are related to peace, security and trust deficit. And the root cause of these problems is increasing radicalization, extremism and terrorism. Excellency, peace and prosperity cannot coexist with terrorism and proliferation of weapons of the mass destruction in the hands of the non-state actors and the terror groups. Dealing with these challenges require decisive action, and we must unite in our fight against these evils for our collective safety and security. It is imperative that those who sponsor, nurture and utilize terrorism for their narrow and selfish ends must bear the consequences. Some countries use cross-border terrorism as an instrument of policy and provide shelter to terrorists. There should be no place for such double standards. SCO should not hesitate to criticize such nations. India's zero tolerance for terrorism is manifest today through its actions. This includes our right to defend ourselves against terrorism, and we have shown that epicenters of terrorism are no longer safe, and we will not hesitate to target them. We should also take proactive steps to prevent the spread of the radicalization among our youth. The RADS mechanism of SCO has played a significant role in this regard. The joint statement of the Council of SCO Heads of State on countering radicalization leading to terrorism, separatism and extremism issued during India's chairmanship symbolizes our shared commitment. Excellencies, we should seek to counter the technology used by terrorists, including drones, for cross-border smuggling of weapons and drugs. In our interconnected world, traditional borders are no longer the sole barriers against threats, and instead we face an intricate web of challenges that range from transnational terrorism and cyber attacks to hybrid warfare. These threats do not respect national boundaries, and they demand a unified response rooted in transparency, mutual trust and collaboration. India reaffirms its resolve to fight terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. On 22nd April 2025, the terror group, the Resistance Front, carried out a dastardly and a heinous attack on the innocent tourists in Pahalgam, in the Indian state of the Jammu and Kashmir. 26 innocent civilians, including a Nepali national, were killed. Victims were shot after they were profiled based on the religious identity. The Resistance Front, which is a proxy of UN-designated terror group Lashkar-e-Toiba, claimed responsibility for the attack. The pattern of the Pahalgam terror attack matches with LET's previous terror attacks in India. In exercising its right to defend against terrorism and preempt as well as deter further cross-border terrorist attacks, India on 7th May 2025 successfully launched Operation Sindoor to dismantle cross-border terrorist infrastructure. We reiterate the need to hold the perpetrators, organizers, financiers and sponsors of reprehensible acts of terrorism, including cross-border terrorism, accountable and bring them to justice. Any acts of terrorism are criminal and unjustifiable regardless of their motivation, whenever, wherever and by whomsoever committed. SCO members must condemn this evil unequivocally. Excellency, India is committed to increasing its connectivity with the Central Asia. Better connectivity not only enhances mutual trade but also fosters mutual trust. However, in these efforts, it is essential to uphold the basic principles of the SCO Charter, particularly respecting the sovereignty and the traditional integrity of member states. India has been consistent and steadfast in its policy in support of peace, security, and stability in Afghanistan. Our immediate priorities in Afghanistan include providing humanitarian assistance to Afghan people and contributing to Afghanistan's overall developmental needs. As Afghanistan's largest regional development partner, India continues to implement capacity building initiatives for the Afghan people. Excellencies, the COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare the fact that the pandemics recognize no boundaries and that no one is safe till everyone is safe. This is a warning sign of how non-traditional security challenges like pandemics, climate change, food and water security, and associated societal disruption can impact our people's lives. These emerging challenges cannot be addressed without responsible policies and cooperation among nations. India's initiative on Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure aims not only at promotion of disaster resilient infrastructure, but also infrastructure risk management, standards, financing and recovery, etc. It is also an example of how countries are coming together to create and share capabilities to deal with humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. We have affirmed this intent through our policy through the acronym SAGAR, which implies security and growth for all in the region, and India's expanded vision Mahasagar, meaning mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across regions. Security and stability are most essential components to create a conducive environment for growth and economic development of the region. India has sought to build consensus on dealing with global challenges on the basis of motto One Earth, One Family, One Future, which is founded on our civilizational ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. Mutual understanding and mutual benefit must be our guiding principles. India supports greater cooperation and mutual trust among SCO members. We should collectively aspire to fulfill the aspirations and expectations of our people as well as tackle today's challenges. We must all be in lockstep in our endeavor in strengthening stability and security in our neighborhood. Excellency, I am optimistic that the today's discussions would help us to deepen the understanding of our shared security challenges and explore new areas for future cooperation in the defense and the security field. Thank you very much, Excellency.
And for more on this, we have Ravi Dhiman joining us on the phone line. Well, Ravi, the Defence Minister stressed on India's stance against terrorism. Can you tell us more on that?
Well, yes, the Defence Minister means no words. He was quite candid in naming the main terrorist organization that operates from across the border, Lashkar-e-Taiba. He said the pattern of Pahalgam attack matched with LET's previous terror attacks in India. And he also said that Operation Sindoor was launched to dismantle cross-border terror infrastructure. And also that India's zero tolerance, also sort of a warning to any such, to all the state and non-state actors who have indulged in terrorism to further their own small political ends. He reiterated India's zero tolerance for terrorism and hinting at Operation Sindhu, which destroyed and totally demolished Pakistan's infrastructure at many air bases and the cantonment area. He said that India's zero tolerance is manifest today through the action. And India has proven that epicenters of terrorism are no longer safe, and also said that warned that India will not hesitate to target them again in case there is again a terrorist attack on the nation. The defense minister also utilized the platform to, sort of tell all the nations to stand in unity against terrorism. He called upon them to condemn and criticize such nations who who use cross-border terrorism as an instrument of the state policy and provide shelter, space, and even give training to terrorists. So, without naming Pakistan, the defense minister gave enough hints that India will continue to defend itself from terror attacks and any further terror attacks on its territory. The nation and the people who are behind it will have to bear consequences that will follow.
Absolutely. Also, the defense minister said that the world is undergoing a drastic transformation, and he spoke about the importance of Shanghai cooperation to maintain regional stability.
Well, that's true. Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a bloc that has many key member states. It's a stabilizing bloc in Asia and Central Asia. And the Raksha Mantri obviously called upon all the leaders of SCOs to maintain stability in the region and to further interest of all the stakeholders.
Right. Thank you so much, Ravi, for all those details. And moving on, India has strongly rejected what it described as Pakistan's nefarious agenda at the United Nations Security Council, accusing Islamabad of attempting to deflect attention from its own human rights violations and state-sponsored cross-border terrorism. India's permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Parvataneni Harish, issued a sharp rebuttal during the UNSC's open debate on children and armed conflict, calling out Pakistan for misusing the platform and violating the Council's agenda.
Our world is witnessing an alarming escalation in conflicts and terrorist attacks, and children are their most unfortunate casualties. As per the UNSG's report, grave violations against children have surged 25%, while sexual violence has risen 35% in 2024, a sobering indictment that demands immediate and decisive action. Therefore, today's discussion is both urgent and necessary. I'm constrained to respond to the politically motivated remarks made by the delegate of Pakistan, one of the grave violators of the CAC agenda. Pakistan is casting unwarranted aspersions over UN processes and also smearing India at various discussions to pursue their nefarious agenda. We reject this attempt by Pakistan to deflect attention from the atrocities committed against children in their country, as highlighted in the Secretary General's report, as well as their rampant cross-border terrorism.
Well, the Indian envoy labelled Pakistan as one of the grave violators of the CAC agenda, referring to the Secretary General's recent CAAC report, which detailed grave violations against children in Pakistan, including attacks on girls' schools and health workers.
Secretary General's report on CAC provides details of serious violations against children in armed conflict in Pakistan. The Secretary General has expressed concern at the rise in such grave violations reported, including attacks against schools, particularly girls' schools, against health workers, and about the incidents in the border areas with Afghanistan, where a series of killing and maiming of Afghan children was directly attributed to cross-border shelling and airstrikes by Pakistani armed forces.
While concluding his remarks, the Indian envoy reiterated India's firm stance on Jammu and Kashmir, stating the entire Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir has been, is and will always be an integral and inalienable part of India, irrespective of the frequent, incessant spate of lies and falsehoods by Pakistan. I
would like to highlight that the entire Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir has been, is and will always be an integral and inalienable part of India, irrespective of the frequent, incessant spate of lies and falsehoods by Pakistan.
Well, the Axim-4 mission launched aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is unfolding as planned, with the spacecraft steadily approaching the International Space Station. The crew, including Shubhanshu Shukla, is expected to dock with the ISS around 4:30 p.m. IST on Thursday, capping a 28-hour journey from Earth to the low Earth orbit. The Axim-4 mission successfully lifted off at 12:01 p.m. IST on Wednesday from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Shubhanshu Shukla, a former Indian Air Force's group captain, has the responsibility as the pilot of the mission, with its commander being Peggy Whitson of the United States. Two other members, Stavros Uznanski-Wisniewski of Poland and Tibor Kapu of Hungary, serve as the mission specialist. The launch marks India's return to human space flight after a gap of 41 years since Rakesh Sharma's 1984 space mission. Shukla, born in Lucknow, is only the second Indian to undertake a space journey. The Dragon spacecraft successfully entered Earth's orbit at an altitude of 200 kilometers, with Shukla later describing the experience as an amazing ride. And moving on to other stories now, the world is hoping for the things to calm down in West Asia as United States would hold nuclear talks with Iran next week. US President Donald Trump even teased the possibility of a deal. While speaking in The Hague, where he attended a NATO summit on Wednesday, Trump said he did not see Iran again engaging in nuclear weapon development. He said US would likely seek a commitment from Iran to end its nuclear ambitions at talks, and credited US strikes on Iran with bringing a swift end to the conflict between Israel and Tehran. Tehran has for decades denied accusations by Western leaders that it is seeking nuclear arms. Trump said he was confident Tehran would pursue a diplomatic path towards reconciliation, though he gave no details on the discussions next week, such as the venue and the participants.
We're going to talk to them next week with Iran. We may sign an agreement. I don't know. To me, I don't think it's that necessary. I mean, they had a war, they fought. Now they're going back to their world. I don't care if I have an agreement or not.
Well, in both Iran and Israel, residents expressed relief at the end of the fighting, but also apprehension. And meanwhile, the Trump administration hit back at the accounts that Iran may have moved enriched uranium before U.S. bombing as a rogue crew on how much the strike set back Iran's nuclear program. Well, Trump has lashed out angrily at the media accounts of a classified report that doubted the extent of damage to Iranian nuclear sites. Another key question raised by experts is whether Iran, preparing for the strike, moved out some 400 kilograms of enriched uranium, which could now be hidden elsewhere in the vast country. Also, the uranium in question is enriched to 60% above levels for civilian usage, but still below weapon grade. The U.S. military said it dropped 14 GBU, 57 bunker buster bombs, powerful 13,600 kilogram weapons on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Trump has repeatedly said that the attack obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities, including the key site of Fordo buried inside a mountain. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baqai, in an interview with Al Jazeera, said that its nuclear facilities were badly damaged.
Yes, our nuclear installations have been badly damaged, that's for sure, because it has come under repeated attacks by Israeli and American aggressors.
Well, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will hold a major news conference on Thursday to quell doubts over the damage done by U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Trump, in a social media post, said Hegseth, together with military representatives, will be holding a major news conference at the Pentagon in order to fight for the dignity of the great American pilots. Also now, Iran is refusing to back down, at least for optics. Iran's IRGC commander, General Mohammad Baghpour, warned that Iran's forces are fully prepared and will respond strongly to any attack. The warning came after Israel launched a surprise bombing campaign on June 13th that killed top Iranian military leaders, nuclear scientists, and targeted key nuclear and missile sites. Iran hit back with a missile barrage that overwhelmed Israeli defenses for the first time. Also, after 12 days of airstrikes, a ceasefire was brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump. Iran reported 610 deaths and nearly 5,000 injuries. Israel reported 28 deaths. The full extent of damage in Iran remains unclear.
همه رزمندگان ما دستشون روی ماشه است. اگر خطایی از طرف دشمن صورت بگیره حتما مثل 12 روز گذشته مقابله مثل جانانه انجام خواهیم داد. در دفاع از این کشور ما لحظه‌ای به خودمون تردید راه نمیدیم.
Meanwhile, Iranian authorities have intensified an internal security crackdown across the country with mass arrests, executions and military deployments, particularly in the restive Kurdish region. Also, IRGC arrested 26 people, accusing them of collaborating with Israel days after a ceasefire between the two countries was announced. The arrest came after Israel's military chief said Wednesday that its commandos had operated secretly inside Iran during the country's 12-day war, as its spy chief also hailed assistance from U.S. intelligence. Security forces set up checkpoints and began arresting suspected spies, with the Revolutionary Guard and Basij forces placed on high alert. Iran also said that it executed 3 men accused of spying for Israel. Both countries have claimed a victory in the conflict since the ceasefire went into effect on Tuesday. Also in a first, U.S. President Donald Trump called for Israel to pardon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or cancel his trial on corruption charges. Trump extolled Netanyahu in his social media post that appeared to be a reference to U.S. involvement and support for Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear program. It was unclear if Trump meant the U.S. could do anything to aid Netanyahu in his legal battle. Also, Israeli media have reported that cross-examination of Netanyahu began on June 3rd in a Tel Aviv court and was expected to take about a year to complete. Netanyahu was indicted in 2019 in Israel on charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust, all of which Netanyahu denies. The trial began in 2020 and involves 3 criminal cases. He has pleaded not guilty. Well, a medical panel appointed by U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. held its first meeting on Wednesday, pledging to revisit the childhood vaccine schedule and promoting themes long embraced by the anti-vaccine activist. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, an independent group that reviews scientific evidence to determine who should receive vaccines and when, rarely draws headlines. Well, the panel's first major test comes on Thursday, when it votes on whether to recommend a newly approved antibody shot against RSV or respiratory syncytial virus for infants whose mothers did not receive an RSV vaccine during pregnancy. And for more on this, we have Amit Mukherjee joining us. Well, Amit, how will the overall of ACIP panel, including the appointment of the members with such known vaccine skepticism, affect the credibility and effectiveness of the vaccine policy making in the US especially?
Well, Lipakshi, we must understand at this point in time that, the Trump administration is going for the overhaul of the entire, medical program, which is administered to the citizens of the health program, which is administered to the citizens of the United States. Now, one of the most critical things is the immunization program, which Kennedy Jr.'s team is now looking at. This group is of the view that most of the immunization that is happening in the US right now are uncalled for. In fact, the ACIP has created 2 teams right now, which will be looking at 2 very, very critical elements as far as the immunization program of US is concerned. Number one, vaccines like those respiratory as well as the COVID-19 vaccines, which are being administered currently to the US citizens. What is the efficacy of those vaccines? What is the fallout on adolescents as well as children who are administered these vaccines. Number two, that this panel will also take a look at whether the mandatory HIV vaccine, the hepatitis B vaccine, which is administered to all infants before leaving the hospital, whether it's required or not. Because the ACIP panel is of the opinion that most developed countries do not administer as many vaccines which US health services offer to the infants in their country. So those things are being taken care of, and also the ACIP panel will also review the vaccines which are being administered but have not been reviewed for the last 7 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for all those details. And time now for a short break. We'll be back in a while.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh reiterates need to hold perpetrators and organisations of terrorism accountable and bring them to justice, says Operation Sindoor launched to dismantle terrorist infra and data attacks. US and Iran to hold nuclear talks next week. President Trump signals easing Iran oil sanctions enforcement to help put country into shape. Kennedy's US vaccine panel says it will scrutinize the childhood immunization schedule. Panel will vote on RSV therapies today. Experts met the announcement with skepticism. Delhi and Uttar Pradesh await monsoon showers while heavy rainfall being witnessed across Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Met Department issues rainfall alert for many other states. Axim-4 aboard SpaceX Crew Dragon with India's Shubhanshu Shukla and 3 other astronauts will talk with International Space Station at around 16:30 IST today. Shubhanshu will be the first ever Indian at the ISS. I'm moving on to some updates now on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukraine signed an agreement with Europe to set up a special tribunal to prosecute Russia for the crime of aggression against Ukraine on Wednesday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Council of Europe Secretary General Alain Berset signed the agreement before Council members. The tribunal was requested by the Ukrainian authorities and endorsed by the Council of Europe foreign ministers in Luxembourg on 14th May 2025. The Council stated that the tribunal's purpose is to prosecute senior leaders, which involves unlawfully using armed force against another country violating the UN Charter. While Zelensky also addressed the Council of Europe and urged political and legal cooperation. Previously, Zelensky met with US President Trump during a NATO summit, after which Trump said the US would consider sending more Patriot missiles to help Ukraine's defense. And Sean Diddy Combs' high-profile federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial is nearing its conclusion, with closing arguments set for Thursday. On Wednesday, prosecutors, as per multiple reports, announced they would not pursue several previously included allegations. The charges were part of the broader racketeering case against Combs, who has pleaded not guilty to all counts. If convicted on all 5 counts, Combs faces a mandatory 15-year prison sentence and could face life behind bars. Defendants in U.S. criminal cases are not required to present evidence, and judges instruct juries not to hold a refusal to testify against the defendants. To win a guilty verdict, prosecutors must prove their cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And a gun attack during a religious celebration in central Mexico has left 11 people dead and others injured in violence-plagued Guanajuato state. The authorities said on Wednesday the shooting erupted on Tuesday night in the city of Irapuato during festivities marking the nativity of John the Baptist. According to the Guanajuato State Prosecutor's Office, a 17-year-old was among those killed, along with 8 adult men and 2 women. In a statement, the Irapuato municipal government said security forces were searching for the perpetrators of the cowardly act, while officials were providing psychological support to those affected. Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum condemned the shooting as deplorable, adding that authorities had launched an investigation. And Ecuador's most wanted man and leader of the Los Chinoran gang, Jose Adolfo Macias, known as Fito, was captured on Wednesday. Fito had been recaptured over a year after he escaped from prison, triggering a wave of violence. Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa wrote on X that they have done their part to proceed with Fito's extradition to the United States, now awaiting for their response. Fito escaped custody in Ecuador in early 2024, and American prosecutors charged him in absentia with 7 counts of cocaine distribution, conspiracy and firearms-related crimes, including weapons smuggling. At the time of his escape, Macias Villamar was also considered a suspect in ordering the assassination of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio, who was shot in Quito in August 2023. U.S. prosecutors claim his gang worked with Mexico's Sinaloa cartel to control key drug trafficking routes between South America and the United States. Ecuador's government had offered a $1 million reward for information leading to his capture. And Colombian President Gustavo Petro signed a labor reform on Wednesday after its approval by the Colombian Senate earlier this month. The bill includes measures to enshrine an 8-hour daytime work day, increase weekend and holiday pay, and require social security payments from delivery app drivers. The approved reform will instantly raise wages for work done from 7 p.m. onward and will gradually boost the extra pay for Sunday and holiday shifts through July 2027. Petro said the Ministry of Labour must create a task force to ensure employers are applying the reform. He also encouraged Colombians to vote for officials who will give continuity to the law in the 2026 legislative and presidential elections. Well, the doctors at Garrahan Pediatric Hospital in Buenos Aires held a protest on Wednesday, criticizing government policies causing underfunding and low wages. The protesters responded to the presidential spokesperson, who defended the government's stance, asserting that the issue lies with Nochi's public employees who draw salaries without performing duties. The medical staff ironically organized a communal meal and cooked Nochis for the protesters. Well, 16 people died during nationwide anti-government protest in Kenya on Wednesday. Thousands of young protesters took to the streets of Nairobi and other cities, demanding an end to police brutality, economic injustice and poor governance. Protest unfolded under heavy police presence, with security forces firing tear gas to disperse the crowds. The Communication Authority of Kenya directed all local media to halt live coverage of the protest. The move came as President William Ruto warned that the violence will not be tolerated, prompting concerns over press freedom. The protest came exactly a year after deadly anti-tax demonstrations in 2023 left 60 people dead and 20 missing. Well, the Peruvian police rescue teams recovered the bodies of 3 missing mountaineers from the snow-covered Artesonrajo Peak in the Cordillera Blanca, Peru, after a 24-day search. The Peruvian media said the rescue operation faced extreme weather and challenging terrain at over 5,200-meter altitude. The bodies were located by hired mountain guides with support from volunteers in a high-risk area. The delicate rescue involved freeing the bodies from unstable glacier conditions. The victims, 2 Peruvians and 1 Brazilian, were passionate mountaineers and students from Huaraza's High Mountain Study Center. Also, thousands of people have flooded into Worthy Farm as gates officially opened for the 2025 Glastonbury Festival. Over 200,000 attendees are expected to arrive over the next few days ahead of the main festival kicking off on Friday. Hundreds had arrived on Tuesday night, camping under the stars and queuing in hopes of being the first to enter. The festival will see performers ranging from Olivia Rodrigo to Rod Stewart and Charlie XCX. Workers were busy setting up the festival stages, including the main arena. The main music program doesn't begin until Friday, but festival goers had plenty of plans to keep themselves busy. Organisers have said this year's edition, taking place from June 25th to 29th, will be the last for the next 2 years to allow time for the festival grounds to recover. And the annual Kataragama Asala festival is set to commence on Thursday in Sri Lanka with the flag hoisting ceremony. Devotees who started their Padayatra across weeks have reached Kataragama, completing a journey of over 500 kilometers across challenging terrain on foot. The Perahara will feature a fire ceremony on July 7th with Maha Perahara, or the grand celebration, scheduled for 10th of July. The festival, which is celebrated across faiths, is known to have deep bonds bridging India and Sri Lanka. Kataragama's main temple, the Mahadevala, is dedicated to the Hindu god of war, Skanda, who is also revered by Buddhists as Kataragama Deviyo and believed by Muslims to be connected to Hazrat Zir. And now some weather updates. The Indian Meteorological Department has predicted heavy rainfall in multiple states until June 30th as showers have continued to disrupt normal life across several states. The southwest monsoon likely to arrive in Delhi and adjoining regions in coming days, while light to moderate rains with thunderstorm is expected in Delhi and nearby areas. Isolated heavy rainfall is likely over Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Rajasthan until June 30th. It is also alerted of heat wave in Jammu division. Parts of central and east and northeast India too will witness heavy rains for the next 7 days. Widespread light to moderate rainfall is likely to continue today in Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram and Tripura. At least 2 people were killed and over 10 went missing after cloudburst led to flash floods in the several districts of Himachal Pradesh on Wednesday. In Kangra district, relief and rescue operations are continuing on a war footing. The contingents of the State Disaster Response Force and a team of Home Guard are deployed at the site and are continuously engaged in search operations. Apart from this, a contingent of National Disaster Response Force has also been called to assist in relief and rescue operations. For safety reasons, the people working in the power project have been shifted to a safe place. The district administration is engaged in relief and rescue work with full vigilance and coordination. The search operation has been further intensified to find the missing people. Also, the New York City is enduring an intense heat wave with temperatures exceeding 30 degrees Celsius for the 3rd consecutive day on Wednesday. According to the National Weather Service, over 150 million Americans were under heat advisories as the massive heat dome parked over the mid-Atlantic peaked in strength. New York City is finally expecting rain and cooler weather on Wednesday. At least 11 people have died in a landslide in the Colombian municipality of Belonia, Medellin. Local authorities said on Wednesday, a day after heavy rains unleashed the wall of mud and debris on crowded neighborhoods and buried some dozen homes. According to Mayor of Medellin, Federico Gutierrez, the emergency workers in Belo pressed on with search and rescue efforts using dogs, drones and other tools, while his office has also ordered the immediate evacuation of over 60 homes that had suffered structural damage. The Medellin Town Hall also issued evacuation orders for Villatina, also on the outskirts of Medellin, stating that 23 buildings would be demolished due to the risk of possible collapse. Also, Paris is hit by heavy rainfall and flash flooding as a violent storm breaks out. The current heat wave saw temperatures soar to 36 degrees Celsius. France has been experiencing its 50th nationwide heat wave since 1947, starting on June 19th, half of which have occurred in the 21st century. According to Meteo France, 57 of the country's departments are under orange vigilance for thunderstorms on the 7th day of an early national heat wave in which the 40 degree centigrade mark has once again been passed. A tropical depression made landfall in China's Hainan Island on Thursday. The country's National Meteorological Center said, bringing additional rainfall to an area still recovering from the impact of Typhoon Wutip, which hit 2 weeks prior. The storm will again test the flood defenses of the densely populated Guangdong province as well as Guangxi and Hunan further inland. Earlier, Typhoon Wutip's passage resulted in 5 fatalities and the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of people, with record rainfall causing damage to roads in cropland. China faces growing threats from extreme storms and severe flooding linked to climate change, which can overwhelm outdated flood defenses, displace millions and cause massive economic losses. And still to come on DD India News Now. Judge sides with Meta as it wins copyright lawsuit over user books to train AI system Llama. Rajasthan, to host 5th Khelo India University Games in November 2025, will welcome over 4,000 athletes. And Car's meadows bloom with a sea of daisies.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on to some business news. A federal judge ruled for Meta Platforms against a group of authors who had argued that its use of their books without permission to train its artificial intelligence system infringed their copyrights. U.S. District Judge Vince Chabria in San Francisco said in his decision that the authors had not presented enough evidence that Meta's AI would dilute the market for their work to show that the company's conduct was illegal under U.S. copyright law. A Meta spokesperson said the company appreciated the decision and called fair use a vital legal framework for building transformative AI technology. The authors sued Meta in 2023, arguing the company misused pirated versions of their books to train its AI system Llama without permission or compensation. And the global stocks showed a mixed performance on Wednesday as investors balanced ongoing concerns about the Iran-Israel conflict. Tech shares lifted the Nasdaq while the S&P 500 ended essentially unchanged. The benchmark index remained within striking distance of its record closing high reached on February 19th. The blue chip Dow ended its negative territory. The dollar continued to slide against the euro, while Nvidia shares reached an all-time high, pushing its market capitalization to $3.75 trillion and making it the most valuable company in the world. The stock rose 4.3% to $154.31, overtaking tech giants like Microsoft and Apple. Also, the Asian markets closed on Wednesday after earlier rallies in the US and Europe, but European stocks declined late in the day. Oil prices rose after 2 days of sharp declines. Japan's Nikkei 225 jumped 1% to surpass 39,300 on Thursday, reaching its highest level in 4 months. The Hang Seng Index rose 1.23%. Well, you're watching DD India News. Our time now for some sports news. Newly elected IOC President Kirsty Coventry attended her first executive board meet 2 days after she took over the reins from Thomas Bach. Coventry started her 8-year spell officially on Tuesday as the most powerful sports administrator in the world. She's the first woman and the first African to be elected as head of the Olympic ruling body. Coventry needed only one round of voting to win the race to succeed Bach, beating 6 other candidates. On Monday, she was handed the golden key to the IOC by Bach, who was in charge for 12 years. And the Indian junior men's hockey team defeated Australia 2-1 in the battle for third place at the ongoing 4-nation tournament on Wednesday. Also, Australian captain Toby Ballin had given Australia the lead in the second half. Rohit provided the equaliser for India before Ajit Yadav's fourth quarter goal sealed the win. The win marks the end of India's campaign in the 4-nation tournament. In the pool stage, India began with a loss to host Germany, bounced back with a victory against Australia and then endured a 1-5 defeat against Spain. And Rajasthan is set to host the 5th edition of the Khelo India University Games in November. The Purnima University and Rajasthan University will jointly host the Khelo India University Games 2025 in Jaipur. More than 4,000 athletes from more than 200 universities are expected to participate in the multi-sport game. Like previous editions, there will be at least 20 disciplines of the Khelo India University Games program. Chandigarh University had won the team championship at the 2024 edition, which was co-hosted by Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Sikkim, Nagaland and Tripura. And Sweden's women national team have started preparing for their friendly match against Norway ahead of the European Football Championship. The 14th edition of the Women's Euro event will be taking place in Switzerland this year from July 2nd. Sweden's coach Peter Gerhardsson said that he is expecting the tournament to be a very quality event. Gerhardsson stated that his focus was on the friendly against Norway and then their first match of the Euros against Denmark.
Always the neighbors around you, and it's Norway tomorrow and then it's Denmark, so that's two important games for the country Sweden to, and I think that's also start of the Euro against Denmark. So even if we win the last game with 6-1, it's a new game, so we have to focus on that.
Well, New Zealand is set to host as many as 5 different international teams in their upcoming home summer. New Zealand will play a test series against West Indies, which will be a part of the ICC World Test Championship. The Black Caps will also face off against rivals Australia, England and South Africa. Meanwhile, the women cricket team will host the Proteas and Zimbabwe in early 2026. The men's team will play a total of 25 international matches during the home summer, while the women will host 14 games. And as winter fades, cars awakens in a sea of daisies, soft and eternal. With the first signs of spring, the meadows transform, bursting into life as thousands of delicate daisies blanket the fields. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Vipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.